This is Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. For over a quarter century, You Had Me at I Do has been helping couples say, I do. We bring more than 400 weddings of real-world experience as an officiant and a DJ, and this podcast is packed with what you, as the bride and groom, need to know, what you're wondering about, and what's keeping you up at night. No judgment, no fluff, just real answers and ideas for real planning. Here's today's episode.
You are sitting on the couch right now. You've got this shiny brand new ring on your finger.
Right, just catching the light.
Exactly, catching the light. It is absolutely beautiful. And yet somehow you are staring at your phone with like 1,000 browser tabs open.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. And you're feeling this sudden crushing wave of overwhelm because one tab is a venue that costs your entire life savings, and another is this massive list of 100 things you supposedly need to do yesterday.
Yeah, the joy just evaporates.
It really does. The pure, unadulterated excitement of getting engaged is just quickly being replaced by full-blown panic.
It is a very specific, very modern kind of whiplash, isn't it? I mean, you go from the high of a proposal, which is this deeply intimate romantic moment, straight into crisis management mode.
Yes. I always joke that society completely treats getting engaged like it's a corporate project kickoff meeting.
It totally is.
Yeah. You get the ring, and suddenly your family and friends expect, like, a slide deck, a budget projection, a color-coded timeline. People literally ask you for your wedding date the morning after you get engaged.
They do.
Yeah.
The cultural expectation is that the second that ring slides onto your finger, you just flip a switch and become this expert event producer.
Which is insane.
Right. The pressure to immediately start churning out decisions can feel incredibly heavy, especially, when you've never planned an event of this magnitude before.
But today, in this deep dive, we are hitting the brakes. We are pulling from a fascinating retrospective written by Chris Truitt. And Chris has a deeply unique perspective on this.
He really does.
Yeah, he has stood with more than 400 couples over 26 years as an officiant and a DJ.
That is just an extraordinary vantage point. I mean, he hasn't just planned these events from afar or dealt with the logistics on paper. He's been right there in the room.
Holding the microphone.
Exactly. Holding the microphone, feeling the actual energy of the crowd for over a quarter of a century. He's seen the entire spectrum.
From the good to the bad.
Oh, absolutely. From the beautifully effortless evenings that just flow perfectly to the incredibly tense, micromanaged events where, honestly, the couple looks miserable at their own party.
And our mission today is to extract his absolute best advice and give you, the newly engaged, slightly panicked listener, a warm, completely spreadsheet-free guide to navigating the immediate aftermath of getting engaged.
No spreadsheets allowed today.
None. Because Chris has this very clear, very reassuring thesis for us. He says the couples who actually enjoy planning their weddings the most are rarely the ones who move the fastest.
Which runs completely counter to the cultural narrative, right? We are constantly told to rush, to secure things, to lock it down before someone else takes your date.
Like it's a race.
Yeah, but rushing is actually the enemy of a solid foundation. Moving too fast is the primary driver of that crushing overwhelm you were just talking about.
Makes sense.
When you sprint into planning, you're making massive financial and emotional decisions before you even know what you actually want.
So if rushing is the enemy, I imagine the very first piece of advice is to just stop. Like, put down the phone and actually experience the milestone.
That's exactly it. Chris strongly advocates for a 1 to 2 week window where you do absolutely nothing related to planning.
Which sounds both wonderful and honestly terrifying for someone who likes to feel productive.
It is.
Yeah.
But he says you need to just be engaged. Go out to a nice dinner, take a long walk, let your friends buy you a drink, let your parents cry happy tears, and just celebrate you.
Yeah, just protect the bubble.
Protecting that initial time bubble is crucial because once you open a spreadsheet or start touring venues, the dynamic shifts permanently.
Oh, how so?
Well, you transition from being romantic partners celebrating a massive life milestone to being co-managers of a massive financial project.
Wow, yeah.
You will spend the next year or more being event managers. You only get this tiny, fragile window of a week or two to just bask in the glow of the commitment you just made to each other.
But I hear the collective anxiety of 1,000 brides listening to this right now. The fear is real. Aren't venues actually booking up crazy fast?
I mean,
Because everyone tells you, oh, you better lock it in. Fall 27 dates are flying off the calendar. It feels like if you take 2 weeks to drink champagne, you're going to end up getting married in a dark alley because everything else is booked.
the industry certainly leverages that scarcity mindset as a marketing tool for sure.
Yeah.
But let's reframe that fear by looking at the sheer scale of the event world.
Okay, reframe it for me.
The wedding industry is a massive, highly capable machine. It is never going to run out of venues. Yes, maybe one specific Saturday at one specific estate might get booked, but a phenomenally talented photographer will still be there in 2 weeks, or another one just as talented will be available.
Right.
The resource that is actually scarce here is your time in this honeymoon phase. You will never ever get back the magic of just being engaged, but you will always be able to find a caterer.
That is so true. And when you let that scarcity mindset win, it can backfire spectacularly.
Well, disastrously.
Chris shares this cautionary tale in his retrospective that perfectly illustrates why panic booking is a nightmare. There was this couple he officiated for who booked a barn venue exactly 48 hours after they got engaged.
48 hours. That is practically before the adrenaline of the proposal has even worn off in your bloodstream.
Literally 2 days. And they did it entirely because a well-meaning friend terrified them into thinking all the fall dates were vanishing.
And the fallout from that premature decision is wild. Because they booked the space before they even talked about their guest list. They had a rude awakening 8 months down the line.
Yeah, their guest list naturally grew by 60 people.
And 60 people isn't just a few extra chairs.
No. So they spent their entire engagement stressed out, trying to physically cram a massive guest list into a barn that was suddenly way too small.
That is the perfect example of the domino effect of stress. When you add 60 people to a wedding, you aren't just buying 60 more plates of chicken.
No, it's everything.
You are talking about the cost per head multiplier effect. 60 more people means 8 more tables. 8 more tables means 8 more centerpieces from the florist, 8 more tablecloths to rent.
A larger dance floor?
Exactly. And maybe even a required second bartender to handle the volume. They bought the container before they knew what they needed to put inside it. And it dictated every stressful concession they had to make for the next year.
Okay, so if we are entirely hitting the brakes on venues and florists and caterers to avoid that trap, is there literally anything that actually needs doing this week? Because some people, they just need a task to feel grounded.
There is exactly one true urgency in that first week, and it is entirely unglamorous.
I'm ready.
Insuring the engagement ring.
Which is brilliant because it takes the anxious energy and channels it into something productive that doesn't ruin your wedding vision.
Precisely. Because loss, damage, and theft do happen, and usually it happens early on when you aren't used to wearing this piece of jewelry.
Right, you're not used to the weight of it.
Yeah, you might take it off to wash your hands at a restaurant and just leave it on the sink.
Yeah.
So getting a rider on your renter's or homeowner's policy or setting up a separate jewelry policy, it takes about 10 minutes on the phone.
10 minutes.
It is a tiny administrative task that saves catastrophic heartache later. And once that 10-minute task is done, the permission slip is signed. Literally everything else can wait.
All right, so the ring is insured, the champagne has been popped, you've enjoyed your 2 weeks of floating on the engagement cloud, but eventually you do have to start planning.
Eventually, yes.
How do we ease into this without opening a blank document and staring into the abyss?
This is where Chris's philosophy really shines. You establish what he calls your North Star through 3 unhurried foundation talks.
Unhurried foundation talks. I love that.
Yeah, and these are conversations you have with your partner, ideally on a walk or sitting on the patio. No laptops, no calculators, no stress.
Okay, so the first of those talks is the big one, the budget. But we are not talking about a line item breakdown of cocktail napkins and postage stamps on day 1, are we?
Not at all.
Yeah.
That level of detail early on is paralyzing. You are simply looking for an honest, comfortable range.
Okay.
The core question is, what can we comfortably spend without starting our marriage under a mountain of debt? It's also the time to gently figure out if your families might be contributing.
Right.
It's about finding a number that makes you both feel physically safe, not stressed. Establishing that you are aiming for, say, somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 is a robust starting point.
It prevents you from living in vague hope. Because vague hope is not a financial strategy.
It really isn't.
You need to know if you are aiming for a backyard barbecue budget or a black tie ballroom budget before you take a single step. Because otherwise, you're going to fall in love with a vendor you absolutely cannot afford.
Which just breeds resentment.
Exactly. Which leads naturally into the second foundation talk, guest count.
And again, this isn't about listing every distant cousin or college acquaintance. It's about establishing a realistic capacity range. Chris suggests a really smart psychological trick here.
Oh, do tell.
Start exclusively with the absolute must-haves. You look at each other and ask, who are the people whose absence would genuinely ruin the day for us?
The ruin the day metric, that is so incredibly clarifying. Like, if my third cousin on my dad's side can't make it, the day goes on perfectly fine. But if my best friend from childhood isn't there, I don't want to have the wedding.
It cuts through the obligation invites immediately. You count those absolute must-haves, which gives you a baseline. Then you add a small buffer, say 20%, for the people you are on the fence about, or the inevitable family additions.
So you end up with a solid range, like 80 to 100 people.
Exactly. And this is so critical because guest count is the ultimate lever in the wedding industry.
Oh, it dictates everything. The size of the room, the catering minimums, the transportation.
It is the single biggest driver of cost and logistics. A realistic range gives you immense flexibility. It stops you from getting locked into a massive banquet hall that requires a minimum of 150 guests when you really only care about 50 people.
That concept of who is in the room brings us beautifully to the third foundation talk, the vibe.
Yes, the vibe.
And this is where Chris makes a massive distinction that I think a lot of people miss. He emphasizes that vibe is completely separate from aesthetics. We aren't talking about sage green versus dusty rose bridesmaids dresses. We aren't talking about the font on the invitations.
Aesthetics are the window dressing. The vibe is the actual architecture of the atmosphere.
I love that phrase.
What do you want the day to feel like in your bones? Are you envisioning an intimate, deeply relaxed afternoon? Is it a massive, raucous party that goes until 2 in the morning? Is it a formal, traditional affair where everyone is in a tuxedo?
Chris shares this wonderful success story in his retrospective about a couple who completely nailed this. Their vibe was simply Sunday dinner at our favorite restaurant.
That was their North Star, just that one phrase.
And because they knew that, it acted as a force field against bad decisions. It effortlessly ruled out hiring a DJ. It ruled out a 12-piece show band. It even helped them walk away from 3 venues that were stunningly beautiful on paper, but entirely the wrong energy for a cozy Sunday dinner.
Think about the decision fatigue that one phrase eliminated for them. Every time a vendor offered them an upgrade or they saw a wild trend on social media, they just had to ask, does this feel like Sunday dinner at our favorite restaurant?
Right.
If the answer was no, they moved on. It is a perfect filter.
I really look at this like building a house. If you were building a custom home, you wouldn't start by picking out the velvet curtains for the living room or the brass hardware for the cabinets before you've actually poured the concrete foundation.
No, of course not.
You need to know the square footage, the layout, and what the ground can actually support first.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The budget, the guest count, and the vibe, that is your concrete foundation. If you try to decorate or book vendors before that concrete is completely set, the whole structure is going to feel unstable and you are going to feel anxious.
So we know the architecture of what we should be doing, but human nature is tricky. I imagine the urge to just do something to feel productive in that first week is overwhelming. Let's explore the hidden traps.
Let's do it.
What are the danger zones couples need to explicitly avoid while they are laying this foundation?
First and foremost on Chris's list, absolutely no venue deposits.
Wait, even if you happen to tour the most gorgeous, perfect estate you've ever seen, I can imagine a couple thinking, we know we want an outdoor vibe. Let's just lock this down so we don't lose the date.
Even then, you have to walk away and think. The venue is almost always the largest financial commitment you will make, but more importantly, it is filled with hidden trapdoors. When you sign a venue contract, you are often locking yourself into their exclusive caterers, their specific food and beverage minimums, and their strict timeline rules. You have to fall in love with your budget and your guest count first, and then find a space that can accommodate the math.
Right, because otherwise you end up like the barn couple trying to bend reality and your budget to fit a premature contract.
Exactly.
Okay, so the second danger zone Chris points out is fascinating because it's purely social. No premature public announcements. He strongly advises against posting that shiny ring on Instagram before you have called your parents and your key family members.
It sounds like common sense, but in the era of instant digital gratification, people skip this step all the time. and it causes immediate, unnecessary friction.
Oh, I bet.
Making a quick private phone call to the people who raised you or your absolute closest friends before you broadcast the news to your high school acquaintances is a gesture of deep respect.
Yeah.
It prevents hurt feelings and saves you from navigating totally avoidable family drama on day one of your engagement.
Speaking of family drama, the third danger zone is a big one. Don't say yes to every opinion, because the minute that ring is public, everyone from your mother-in-law to your barista is going to have advice on what you must do.
You will be flooded with opinions, and while some of it might be gold, a lot of it will be other people trying to live out their own dream wedding through your event.
So true.
The defense mechanism here is simple. You don't have to agree to a single suggestion. You just smile, say, "That sounds lovely, we'll think about it," and firmly stick to your foundation.
Now, I want to challenge the final danger zone on Chris's list. He tells couples to avoid Pinterest spirals in the beginning. But wait a minute, isn't inspiration the whole point? If you don't know what kind of wedding you want, shouldn't you be looking at pictures to figure out what you actually like?
Inspiration in moderation is wonderful.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the psychology of the algorithm here. Platforms like Pinterest or Instagram are not designed to help you plan an efficient, reasonably priced wedding.
No, they are not.
They are designed for retention. The danger is the infinite scroll. Chris points out how quickly a vision mutates when your brain is endlessly consuming imagery.
Because it just keeps serving you slightly more elevated versions of what you just clicked on?
Exactly. You start out wanting a simple, elegant garden wedding with some string lights. But the algorithm feeds you a garden wedding with a custom clear-top tent.
Oh, boy.
And a tent with crystal chandeliers. Then a tent with chandeliers and a live painter capturing the ceremony. Suddenly, your brain has processed thousands of images of aesthetic overload, and that simple garden wedding feels inadequate.
It is the ultimate scope creep. You end up with comparison anxiety before you've even picked a date. You start feeling like your vision isn't enough simply because it doesn't look like a stylized editorial shoot that costs $100,000 to produce.
And that aesthetic overload causes severe decision fatigue. It becomes physically harder for your brain to make confident decisions later because you've overwhelmed your sensory inputs.
Wow.
Save the mood boards for after you know your vibe and your budget.
That makes total sense. So we have the concepts, we know the traps. But how does this translate into a practical timeline that actually fits a real person's life? Because nobody wants to be in a state of high alert stress for a year straight.
The standard guidance Chris offers, and this is for a typical wedding of roughly 75 to 150 guests, is that it comfortably takes 12 to 18 months to plan.
Comfortably being the operative word, it gives you space to breathe.
Yes, that timeline aligns with standard vendor booking cycles, but more importantly, it gives you time to save money and make thoughtful choices without feeling like you are staring down the barrel of a ticking clock. It allows you to actually enjoy the process of being engaged alongside the work of planning.
But I notice he also mentions that micro-weddings or elopements can bypass this entirely. They can be done in a matter of weeks or a few months.
And that is a feature of their scale. A shorter timeline works beautifully for intimate events because you are tapping into a different vendor pool.
Like non-traditional venues.
Right, maybe you're picking a private dining room at a restaurant instead of bringing caterers, tables, and generators into a raw space. There are simply fewer moving parts to coordinate. The overarching rule is that your timeline must fit your life, your work schedules, your financial realities, your mental health. It shouldn't be dictated by arbitrary industry rules.
Which brings us to Chris's philosophy for week one. And I want to frame this carefully because it's not a rigid checklist, but rather a mindset shift for those first 7 days. He breaks it down so beautifully.
He really does.
Days 1 through 3, you protect the bubble. You just stay engaged. You tell your inner circle. You take 10 minutes to ensure the ring, and that is it.
It is a deliberate practice of delaying the gratification of diving into the deep end, which sets a calm tone for the entire process.
Then around days 4 and 5, you have that one unhurried foundation talk. You leave the laptops closed, you get on the same page with your partner, and you simply save 3 bullet points on your phone's notes app.
Just 3.
Your budget range, your guest count range, and your vibe.
Those 3 bullet points become your compass. They are the filter for every single decision, argument, or compromise you make going forward.
And finally, as you hit the weekend, days 6 and 7, you open the door kindly with involved parents, especially if they might be helping to pay. You are just setting a respectful stage. You tell them, We are so excited and we want to sit down soon to talk about what we're thinking.
Right.
You are explicitly not giving them answers yet. You are just managing their excitement.
Managing expectations early is a lifesaver. Chris shares a brilliant anecdote about the power of this exact week one approach.
Oh, the relaxed couple.
Yes. He talks about the most relaxed couple he ever met in a planning session. They sat down with him, and they hadn't booked a single vendor yet. No venue, no photographer, no caterer. But they knew their budget range, they knew their guest count, and they knew their main priority. Their vibe was simply laughter and exceptionally good food.
They had the concrete pour, they knew the architecture of their day, and I'm guessing the vendor community loved them.
They were a dream to work with. Every vendor they hired afterward noted how incredibly easy they were to collaborate with because they weren't second-guessing themselves. They weren't stressed out by the endless options on Pinterest.
Because they had that filter?
Exactly. They weren't easily swayed by someone trying to upsell them a fog machine for the dance floor because a fog machine doesn't align it with a vibe centered on good food and laughter. That kind of ease isn't an accident. It is the direct, tangible result of doing the foundation work first.
It really is. Like, that Notes app on your phone acts as a compass. The wedding industry can feel like this incredibly dense, overwhelming forest. It is so easy to get lost in the trees of trends and expectations and what your coworkers did at their weddings.
Oh, easy.
But if you have your compass, your budget, your count, your vibe, you can always find your way back to what actually matters to you as a couple. It keeps you from wandering off a cliff just because the algorithm told you that you desperately needed a custom ice sculpture.
It keeps you deeply grounded when the noise of the industry gets too loud.
So what does this all mean for you, the newly engaged bride listening right now, staring at your phone with that beautiful new ring catching the light? If you are feeling overwhelmed, I want you to physically take a deep breath.
Just breathe.
Close those browser tabs. You are not behind on anything. You are exactly where you need to be at the very beginning of a wonderful transition. The most memorable weddings, the ones that your friends and family will talk about for years, are never the ones with the most expensive floral arches or the trendiest details.
Never.
They're the ones where the couple knew what mattered to them and they made choices that authentically matched that truth.
It all comes down to intentionality. When you finally give yourself permission to strip away the pressure to perform for social media or to meet some unspoken family expectation, you are left with the beautiful core purpose of the day.
Celebrating your commitment.
Yes, celebrating a profound, lifelong commitment with the people you genuinely love the most.
So we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to ponder with your partner. Maybe bring this up on that phoneless walk you're going to take later this week.
That's a great idea.
If you were to strip away every single trend, every expectation, every family opinion, and every piece of advice, if you just stripped all that away, what is the one specific memory you want your guests to take away from that night as they drive home?
That is the question that clarifies absolutely everything. Because once you know that answer, the rest is truly just details.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a breath, enjoy the moment, and remember your compass. To hear more, visit our podcast page at youhadme@ido.com/podcast.
You've been listening to Planning Your I Do from You Had Me at I Do. Show notes, planning help, and ceremony support are at youhadmeatido.com/podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and send it to a bride friend who needs answers instead of more stress at 2 in the morning. Thanks for listening.